podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
So when I was in third grade, I was a super geeky kid, even though I didn't really know it yet. But basically what that meant at the time was I was bad at gym. And my uncle, Sinclair, sensed this, and he bought me the D&D Red Box basic set. And I had never heard of Dungeons & Dragons. I don't think he had either. He just kind of sensed that this was the right thing for me. And I opened it up, and it changed my life. It really did. It changed my entire life. And I remember just getting into it, and because I'd read The Hobbit, and I'd even started to get into Lord of the Rings, and this was right up my alley. And some of my friends had, at the same time, just coincidentally started to get into it too. So I started to make a character, and I can't remember his name. I was telling somebody the other day, I can't remember his name. He was an elf, and I cheated because I didn't know any better. I just wanted to make the most powerful character that I could possibly imagine. And so he ended up being like a 12th level multi-class fighter, cleric. Because we're mixing like advanced Dungeons and Dragons and basic. And so he was a fighter, cleric, magic user. And I had this crystalline set of armor, and he rode a dragon, and he was basically invulnerable. And so we brought him into this. Our teachers let us play in the halls at recess, which was a great alternative to getting beaten up by larger children at the time. So our first game, we sat down, and I had my amazingly powerful elf, and my friend Josh Madison was running the game, and he says, okay, so you open the door, and you see a golem. And I immediately cast a teleport, and I went back to the keep on the Borderlands, and I ran away from the fight. And it was all downhill from there.
Does that story sound familiar to you guys? If not, don't worry, it didn't to me either. But today we have on a special guest, probably my most famous guest thus far. It's Skid from the Glass Cannon podcast.
Ogre Cheerleaders is a lighthearted card game where players are trying to recruit the best squad of Ogre Cheerleaders. The way that works is each turn you play an ogre onto the field and resolve the card effects. The cards rearrange or manipulate what's on the field in some way, with the goal of arranging them into different formations that you can score, such as multiple cards next to each other that have the same value or are from the same team. It's a fun and silly game for ages 8 and up, so it's easy enough for anyone to learn how to play. Games are quick and last around 10 minutes or less, and it's a single deck of cards, so it's easy to bring it with you and play a few games at the restaurant while you're waiting for your food, or if you just don't have long enough to play longer games. We call it a 2-ish player game, which means that it was made to be played by 2 players, but you can add an extra player or 2 to the game and it still works just fine. The game will just involve more luck the more players you add. The artwork really helps bring the game to life, and will have you laughing each time you play an Ogre Cheerleader to the field. Check out the Kickstarter page, which will be live until September 14th.
Thanks for joining us, Skid.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be on. Thank you for asking me.
No problem. So I haven't researched it much, but I think I've heard of a lot of podcasts that are actually playthroughs of RPGs, specifically D&D, and recently I was searching around on Patreon, trying to get my Patreon prepared, and I came across the Glass Cannon podcast. You guys also do a playthrough of an RPG, don't you?
We do. We're playing Pathfinder, and around 2015, we started a playthrough of what at the time was their newest adventure path, which is a huge multi-book adventure that's meant to span years, and it has, of their newest one at the time, which is a Giant Slayer, which is very old school. Like, it harkens back to my early days of playing Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of orcs, a lot of giants, very epic. So yeah, so that's what we're doing.
Okay, cool. So who all is on the Glass Cannon podcast, and why did you guys create it?
Well, it's me, Skid Maher, my friend Grant Berger, Joe O'Brien, Troy Lavallee is our despised game master, and Matthew Capodicasa. And it's kind of hard to remember how we came up with the idea initially, but I had started listening to Nerd Poker, which was Brian Posehn's Dungeons and Dragons actual play podcast, and I was loving it. But I was thinking, like, I enjoy playing with my friends so much, and I think that we have a similar kind of sensibility, something that would be fun for other people to listen to. And so we started talking about it, and Troy might have had the idea simultaneously with me. But anyway, Joe, Troy, and me started talking about it. And of course, Joe is shooting down all of our ideas because that's what he does. But he poked holes in like every weakness that we had in our plan until we finally came up with something workable. And then we went out, and I had been running a game of Rise of the Rune Lords, which is another Pathfinder adventure path, with Grant. And we thought he would be really fun to have in the group. And we had also, Joe was running these game nights in Manhattan once a month, where he would take over a bar and have just people come and do board games and just all kinds of role-playing games and everything. And he'd get like 50, 60 people at these things. And one of the guys that would show up was Matthew Capodicasa. So he was our Pete Best, or Ringo, I guess. I guess he was our Ringo. He was the fifth Beatle. So we brought him in, and yeah, we started from there. And we had an instant chemistry with each other. Joe, Troy, and I had all played together in a campaign for a while, and we just hit it off so well. And Grant and Matthew just fit right in. So that was it.
Cool. So where'd the name the Glass Cannon come from?
We argued about it for a long time. I should save this email chain because we all these ideas. We had tons of ideas, and none of them were quite right. And this was the best one we could think of. And it's ultimately, I think it represents the power of our personalities and our nerdiness, as well as the fragility of our collective egos.
Cool beans. And so I've heard of I've heard of Dungeons and Dragons. The only one I really played, it was a long time ago, probably 20 or so, 20 plus years ago or whatnot. I played MERP, Middle Earth Role Playing. It looked like your EM Troy has played it, but it looked like you played quite a few interesting ones. Did you have a favorite before you found this, or besides, of course, the old Dungeons and Dragons? But it looked like you played quite a few different ones, according to the website.
Yeah, I've played a lot. I played MERP too. I loved MERP. Loved it.
You didn't have a list, but Troy did.
Yeah, Troy did too. And it was something. I've always been a massive Tolkien fan, and I just loved all those source books that MERP used to have, and all the arts and everything. Like they took a lot of the art from the like backgrounds from the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie from 1978. And I just loved it so much. But I loved D&D. I loved MERP. I loved playing Rifts. I played a lot of Rifts, a lot of Palladium stuff back in the day. But I think my favorite was probably Traveler, which was a science fiction game that came out in 1977, same year Star Wars did. And it was just this fantastic, huge interstellar setting. And one of the most well-remembered features of the game was that your character could die during character creation. And I had several characters die during the character creation process, which was always really fun and frustrating.
Oh wow! Before you're even done creating the characters.
Yeah, like you would roll on these tables like for their careers previous to becoming an adventurer. And you choose either you go in like the Navy, like the Space Navy, or like Merchant Marine, or whatever it is. And so they go year by year, and you roll for events in your career, and they can give you skills or money or whatever. And some of them is like, oh, your spaceship blew up and you died. It's like I didn't even play it, but that would happen all the time. I don't know why they did that, but it was really fun.
Oh, well, that's interesting. And then I saw something about, I want to say it was you, about Goonies too, and like Ninja Turtles. Were those, and Ghostbusters maybe, were those role-playing games as well?
Yes. Yeah, Goonies I don't know. That might have been somebody else. But I definitely played Ghostbusters, the West End game. Loved that game. What was the other one you mentioned? Ghostbusters?
Something about Ninja Turtles,
Yeah.
Like it's a Nintendo game, maybe.
No, it was a role playing game put out by Palladium. It was the same people put out Rifts that I mentioned. And they also did Robotech and a bunch of other stuff, but it was based on the Eastman and Laird comic book rather than the TV show.
Okay.
Which was, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was very dark, very gritty comic. It was like an underground, it was very violent. And it was definitely funny, but it was a lot of very bloody, and the game itself was really dark too, because it's all about these mutated animals and corporate conspiracies and everything. But it was a blast. It was so fun. And the cool thing about the Palladium games was that they all operate on the same basic rule system. So you could take characters from any one of these games and they would fit in seamlessly to any one of the other ones. So you could take I could take my mutant beaver from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and have it piloting a Veritech fighter in Robotech.
Oh wow.
Or they can all warp into rifts, which was, just everything. So that was great. I used to love those.
Oh, cool. So, yeah, like I said before, the only role-playing game I've ever played really was MERP, Middle Earth Role-Playing, and then kind of how it worked is as soon as I ended up buying the stuff, they would stop playing something. They did that with MERP, and then they did it with Magic a little bit. But,
Yeah.
How does this compare to what you guys are doing compared to the Pathfinder? How is MERP comparable to that, even though I don't really remember much about it?
Oh, man. I don't really remember... I don't remember much about the rule system for MERP. I have all the books in my closet. I should just turn around and look at them. But I think the thing about Pathfinder is it's an outgrowth of D&D 3.5, which was, I took a pretty long break from role playing after D&D second edition, and so all of these, that's when like the D20 kind of system came into vogue. And it was a huge improvement to role playing. It just really like simplified, unified everything, made things flow so much better, to the point where I don't know if I could go back, and even I don't think I could even go back and play D&D second edition now without a lot of research. Or MERP. I remember the one thing that I loved about MERP that I remember was the critical tables, and that's something that we do use because of my positive memories of that game, the critical and fumble tables.
Well, you have a better memory than me. Wow.
It was the best thing in the game, apart from the lore.
There you go. So let's see here. And I forget if I already asked. Why did you guys come up with the podcast? I know you said you were listening to the Nerd Poker or whatnot, or.
Yeah, I think at the time, it was Nerd Poker was on. I think Dan Harmon's podcast. They're playing Dungeons and Dragons in that. So there weren't that many. And I think like a Critical Role was the thing, but I wasn't really familiar with it. But there weren't a lot. Like now it seems like there are a lot, but at the time there weren't really as many. But the few that there were some really good ones like Nerd Poker, but there were a lot that were just like, it sounded like someone just putting their iPhone on record memo and putting it in the middle of a table and people just talking, playing the game and not editing it. And I was like, well, I know we can do better than this. So, we really wanted to come together. We thought like we have the collectively, we have the skills to like, and we know enough other people that are good at various things to have really good production values. So that, if nothing else, like we can bring that to the table.
Well, do you ever expect it to become as popular as it is?
No. I think if you listen to the first episode, I think Troy mentioned something about hopefully maybe getting a dozen people to listen.
Yeah, I want to say something about 2. It's been a little bit, but something about 2.
Yeah, it was something like that. And that's honestly like what we were thinking initially. Like we hoped that we could get a larger audience. But no, we never expected anything like it ended up being.
Yeah, like I said before, I'd only found you guys on Patreon, and that's how I found out about you guys. Let's see here. How did you all get it that famous? Do you know, or what did you guys do? Anything different, or?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing that we did and this was mostly Joe. Joe did so much research into this. Was he kind of figured out how iTunes worked, and so he came up with this plan. He's like, what we have to do is call in every favor that we have, like everyone we know, reach out to them. When we launch, we're going to launch on this one particular day, and tell everyone we know, look, if you ever loved me or liked me or didn't hate me, subscribe to our podcast and download these first 2 episodes that we're launching with. You don't have to ever listen to it, but just download it. And so and Joe and like everyone, we all called in favors. Like Joe is a voiceover agent in New York. He called in a bunch of professional favors. So what we did is we got enough people that first couple of days to download that we made iTunes new and noteworthy.
Cool.
And I think we made like top 10 like that day. And so that the outgrowth that we just had from that was what drove us forward. And then we had a couple of like little blog posts and articles like written on us. Geek and Sundry like mentioned us in an article at one point. And those like boosted the numbers a little bit more, and it's just all kind of built on itself. But that was the main thing, was getting that big first day. Like that put us on kind of this radar. So
cool. So you talk of voiceover, Joe doing voiceover work. Is he the one that introduces the episodes, like this week on the Glass Cannon podcast?
He wishes. No, it's actually he is an agent, and it's one of his clients who does it as a favor. I don't think he even listens to the show, but he just he just wants to get work. So for as a favor to Joe, and he's been great. Like he's every single intro, like he's done it, and he does a fantastic job.
Well, yeah, that's one of my favorite parts. Well, I like the whole show, but that's one of my favorite parts, to find out what's going to happen this week.
Oh, good.
Cool. And so it sounds like you have played what? Yeah, we already talked about that. Let's see. Sorry. What's the purpose of the Glass Cannon podcast? If you had to narrow it down, what would be your purpose?
I think our main thing is that the thing that we get the biggest kick out of is introducing people to role playing. People who don't know much about it, or don't know anything about it, or have heard about it and are weirded out by it. Maybe like it's not so much true anymore, but it's definitely for me, and maybe for you growing up, there was a stigma against it. Like there was people were really like reluctant to like get into it, thinking like, you're worshiping the devil, or or whatever, but it's something weird, and like we don't want to get. But our greatest thrill is like getting emails from people saying like, I never played in my life, and I listened to you guys play, and now I see what the appeal is, and now I'm starting my own game, or like I'm joining another game, or but that's our main thing, is just, I guess, just kind of raising the awareness of what an awesome hobby this is. And we're also really pleased that so many friendships have started from like people who listen to the show and have started talking to each other online. Like we hear about all of these people who have who game together now because they met through the show, and they become these wonderful friends to each other, and that's great too. So that's mainly it.
Cool. I wasn't alive back then, but it almost reminds me of, because I've listened to a couple of them, but like an old time radio show or whatnot. It's almost like watching a movie kind of when you guys get together.
Yeah, that's kind of what we want to do. That's what we want to get across to people, the storytelling possibilities of a game like this. Mm-hmm. And it's very much, we very much have like those old like radio serials like in mind. Like that was a big inspiration.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. And quick question for you, in regards to this, does Troy write the story, or is a lot of it in the book, or how much comes from the book and how much comes from you guys as players and DM?
Well, a lot of it, the bulk of it is from the published adventure Giant Slayer, but when you're role playing, so much of it is improvised, and so much of it is like grows out of results of bad die rolls or good die rolls. And a lot of it, and we all like came up with our characters and our characters' backstories, and a lot of us, spent a lot of time on them and or we all did, and these kind of so Troy has managed to work in like characters from our pasts and insert them pretty seamlessly into the story, and and we've come up with non-player characters that are interesting to us, and so it's this kind of that's it. Always when you're playing from a published adventure, your story that you end up having created is a very unique one because you have the main plot points that you have in the book, but then you have all these other moments that no one else will have. So it's this kind of it's a melange of all of our different experiences and input. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, just like you were talking about with inspiring people, I was actually thinking of me and my family. We did a podcast of Getting Geeky with Game Relief, and one of our plans from the beginning and get-go was to have like an actual playthrough of I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a kind of a role-playing game. Well, they call it a role-playing game, a dice role-playing game. It's called Too Many Bones. It was on Kickstarter a while back ago. I don't know if you've heard of that or not.
I haven't, no.
But yeah, it's kind of like a board game, but it says it's a dice role-playing game. So it's strictly dice. It's not like pen and paper or whatnot. So that's our plan, and you kind of inspired me to get going on it. I'm just really scared to death on doing it and whatnot. It feels like really overwhelming trying to read the book and get all of that figured out. Do you ever get that from others, that they're kind of overwhelmed from everything in a role-playing game or whatnot?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But that's one of the reasons why our podcast and other similar podcasts are great, because it's a great way to kind of learn the basics of how things work. And then the other thing that makes things a lot easier is if you know someone or are able to hook up with someone who does know the game really well and learn as you play. If you're starting from scratch, like if you just pick up the Pathfinder core rulebook and just sit down, it's like, I'm going to learn this game. You're going to have a hard time, honestly, because it's a very complicated game. Not as complicated as like old Dungeons and Dragons was, but it's still a lot of rules to remember and everything. But but watching Critical Role or listening to us, listening to Sneak Attack, God's Fall, whatever, that'll definitely help get you up to speed on the flow of it, how things basically work, and then you can fill in the edges of stuff that you don't know with the book. But the best way is to play with someone or someones who already know the game.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, well, and I was on the RPG. I don't know if you've heard of it, the RPG Academy. They kind of talk about things. I think that's what it was. But I heard that if you're the main rule was if you're doing it right, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong, or
yeah,
I don't remember something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So what kind of advice would you give somebody starting out on any RPG game, I guess, or any role-playing game?
I think it's good to start as simple as you can. There are a few like kind of entry level games that are easier for people who are just getting into it. Dungeon World is one that I can think of at the top of my head. It's not as rules heavy, and it's more focused on just kind of character and story. And that's definitely more improvisational, and that can be a fun one to kind of like break into it. And as I said, if you're able to online, like or if you go down to like your local gaming store, a lot of times they'll have sign up sheets for people who are looking to join a game. And that can be hit or miss. It can be strange if you're playing with strangers. Like, you never know what you're going to get. Like, we all of us played with different people before we found each other, and we had varying levels of success. But hopefully, you can find a group of people that you like playing with, that you sync with well. But yeah, local gaming store, like, is a great place to play it. Our own message boards for Glass Cannon, we have a Discord channel. There's one channel devoted just to people looking to game online. There's Roll20 is an app that syncs with Google Chat. People, then you have the maps up there and everything, and people, you can join an existing game or you can start a new game with people looking to do that. So there's all kind of options, and that's a really good one too, because a lot of times a lot of people don't have access to other people who want to play in their immediate area. So playing online is a great option.
Well, and you do that through, what is it called? Discord?
Discord, yeah. I think so. If you go to there's a subreddit for our show, which is Reddit/The Glass Cannon. And there's a set of links there, and one of them is to the Discord, and that'll take you right there. And there's a bunch of people on there waiting to play.
Cool. And can you find this all through your guys' website, the glasscannonpodcast.com?
Yes, and we're in the very midst of a huge revamp to the website, but it's still, all that stuff should be available on there.
Cool beans. So just if somebody was wanted to start and listen to you guys' podcast, where would you recommend? Would you recommend they start at the first like I did, or do they start where you're at, or what's best, you think?
Well, it's an ongoing story. So it's like it would be if you came in at any point other than the beginning, it would be like starting to watch Breaking Bad. It's like, I'll watch the first episode of season 5.
Oh, okay.
So you can do it, but you'd be missing all of the backstory. So our recommended thing is to start from the beginning. But that's great because you have tons of material there, like waiting for you. But I mean, honestly, I think you could jump in anywhere, but you'd probably be confused.
Cool. Can you give us a little bit of breakdown about like some of the characters, like what characters you guys are in the game, at least when you started? I don't remember if you were you Gladrius or?
Yes, I was Galabras Finn.
Okay.
I mean, yes, I'm at the beginning of the game. I don't want to give anything away, but at the beginning of play, I am Galabras Finn, the cleric of Desna. And then we also have Sheriff Baron Redheart. Oh wait, not Sheriff. Baron Redheart, who is a dwarvish gunslinger played by Grant. We have Gormley Call, who's a really creepy witch played by Matthew. And we have Lork Irontusk, who is a grizzled, aging half-orc ranger played by Joe O'Brien.
Cool beans. And let's see here. Yeah, and they've been teasing for a while. I know you don't want to give any spoilers, but you guys are horrible in teasing the fact that somebody's going to die. I think somewhere in the 20, they did really. I don't remember who opened up. Maybe it was you or somebody opened up about, or maybe it was Lork, or but they opened up about how it's important to kill people in podcasting in the games or whatnot. And so I thought somebody was going to die the whole episode, and nobody died a couple episodes later. Waiting for somebody to die or get killed.
Well, I will say, I don't want to give anything away, but it's a dangerous world of Galarian, and we do go by what the dice say, and so these characters are at constant risk, and a mistake or two or some bad luck can lead to death.
Yeah, I remember somebody almost killed themselves. They were trying to attack somebody, and somebody almost killed themselves.
Yeah, I think that was Lork.
Yeah,
it was probably Lork. It happens more than once. But yeah. So it's great. I mean, it's awful to lose a character that you're really attached to, but it's also great for the story. And then you end up being able to create a new character that like is brought in and maybe bring something new.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good. So, where would everybody go ahead and if they were interested in getting started in podcasting, or just in particular, where would they find you guys, the Glass Cannon Podcast? Where can you guys be found? Minus your hometown and stalking you or whatnot.
The website, you can go glasscannonpodcast.com. You can search for us on iTunes or basically any whatever podcast app you use, Podcast Addict or whatever. Or you can just listen right through the website. So
cool beans. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This will probably launch right before we start doing our what do you call it, our playthrough of Too Many Bones, but I wanted to give them kind of everybody an introduction into role playing in case they hadn't done it or whatnot.
Great. Well, I look forward to hearing your Too Many Bones playthrough. I'm curious about the game.
Cool. Yeah, cool beans. Well, I appreciate you coming on, getting geeky with Gamer Life. Sorry, let's see, one more quick thing for you. I don't know if we'll continue this with the podcast or whatnot. We play it on our Family Fridays or whatnot, but I don't know if we'll continue it with the role playing game. But it's called Adventures in Application Acquisition. Is there an app that can deal with role playing or a game or just something productive you use? Is there any kind of app you use that you like or don't like?
Oh, for playing online?
Yeah, it can just be an application you use on your phone. It doesn't even have to be tied to role playing game, but some kind of application you use.
Oh, well, I mean, an app that we use all the time is Sirenscape, which is what we use for the sound effects for the show, and it's a dynamic ambient sound program for role playing games. So like there's a bunch of tabs, like different sound sets. And like if you're going into like a busy tavern, like they have a busy tavern sound set, you click on it and you hear glasses clinking, people laughing, drinking, everything. There's like a spooky dungeon sound set. There's a rainy forest, like all this stuff. So that's huge. Like I use that in my own games too, like even when we're not recording. But it really just helps like set the mood. You can get it on your phone, you can get it on your iPad, you can get it on your laptop, whatever. But it's Sirenscape. Awesome.
Cool. Is there a cost or is it a free app? Or
it's free. There's I think there's like the 4 basic sound sets are free, and then you can either purchase individual sound sets for like I think it's like $3.99 each, or and this is the best deal in the world. You can start a subscription, which I think is $12.99 or something per 2 months, and that gives you access to everything that's come out so far. And you keep those even if you cancel your subscription. So if you just, I hate telling people this because we like Ben Loomis, the guy who created it, but you can sign up for a subscription, pay for it once, download every single sound set, and there's like 100 or something. And you own those forever, and then you can cancel, and then you're done paying. But yeah.
There you go. Unless you delete them, like if you downloaded them and then deleted them, would they be gone?
Right. Yes. If you delete them, then they're gone. But if not, they're yours forever.
Well, there you go. Cool beans. Well, yeah. Once again, I'm sorry. What would you do if you own the rights to it? What would be one thing you would do to make that Sirenscape better? Do you think?
What? It's funny you say that because we have to. We do, and you probably haven't gotten to this point in your listen through, but we have one of our friends, Nick Lowe, who works at Marvel Comics. He's actually in charge of Spider-Man at Marvel Comics now. And he's a fan. He started like we were friends with him anyway, but like he started listening, and he really got into the show. And he loves making music, and so he started creating little jingles and stuff, sound drops for us.
Yeah, I was about to ask that. I don't know if we could use that on the podcast or whatnot. Maybe like you could send it to me, but yeah. There's a song that is Skid when he explains stuff in role playing.
Oh, yeah, Nerdage. Okay, so you've heard that. Yeah, so Skid's got some splaining to do. It is time for Nerdage, which is still my favorite song that I've ever heard in my life.
Cool.
So we did, but there's more of those, and so we have to run those through my phone, so we have to plug that into the soundboard. So the thing that would make it easier if we could put all those drops into Sirenscape. But the good news is that pretty soon Sirenscape is going to be coming out with a Glass Cannon podcast sound set, which will have all of our drops in it.
Well, there you go.
So not only will we have access to it, but any of you will have access to them too.
Oh, cool beans. There you go. Well, that's perfect. That's great. And yeah, once again, I appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. And yeah, continue with the Glass Cannon podcast. People will like it, I think, as far as I can tell.
Oh, thank you. You too. I thank you. This is a privilege to join you, and I'm very glad you asked me.
Okay, well, as you heard, that was Skid, and this is one of our episodes on role-playing games. But this is Kickstarter Corner. I didn't have the luxury of having the chickles on, or the kids, or whatever you would call them, on tonight with me. So I just wanted to go over a couple of quick Kickstarters that are currently going on. Once again, we'll make sure we leave these in the show notes. But we wanted to tell you about Ancient Artifacts, Indiana Jones-like game, which you're go ahead and trying to get different artifacts and trying to outsmart your opponents. We also have Arcade Fighter. Do you like Street Fighter? Do you like Mortal Kombat? Then this is a game for you where you're actually fighting, but you've moved to the tabletop. So turn the TV off and go ahead and get on the tabletop to fight one another. So those are some great games. Also, there's a new one joining us that we wanted to talk about on the Kickstarter. It's called Robert Asprin's The Cold Cash War. It is a role-playing game setting for the Savage Worlds and Cepheus system. I don't know what that is, but it's based on Robert Asprin's The Cold Cash War, which I believe is a book from the 1970s. So just to tell you a little bit about it is, let's see here, the corporate wars are on. International conglomerates plot a complete domination of the free world, facing off against world governments who want only freedom in a calculated and vicious battle of wits and blood. Come see multinational corporations have launched a lethal campaign against the world. For the first time ever, a role-playing game setting based on the original works of Robert Asprin and Bill Fawcett. The setting book incorporates the novel Cold Cash War and the combat command book Cold Cash Warrior. Check it out on the Kickstarter today. It will be going until the 5th of October, so don't miss out on this great game. And you will be able to role play with the rest of them in an awesome new setting. Well, that is all we have today on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. Can't wait to interact with you. Make sure you go ahead and check out our Patreon page. Don't back us. Just make sure you check it out and tell us what you like, what you dislike, what we can do better. We're always open for insight and what games you would like to hear, what different characters or Kickstarters you'd like to hear about. You can always send us an email over at gamerelief@gamereliefgo.com. Kind of like Pokemon Go, but gamereliefgo.com. And we will catch you on the flip side. Don't forget to get geeky with Game Relief. Now, back to your other scheduled programming that you like to listen to, or hopefully you'll just catch another episode of us. Anyways, get geeky with Game Relief, and peace out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.